So, do the turtles really have turtle power? Are they best served as turtle soup? Hello everyone, Bront, CatHerder here. We're having some fun talking Raid Shadow Legends, and we are here on my free-to-play account, but it doesn't really matter which account we are on. We are going to be talking about the new TMNT event thing that they've got right here. I am going to go over all of the champs. I am going to tell you my opinion, given the kits at least. Obviously, I can't test multipliers on some of these things, so some of these are going to be multiplier-dependent ratings for these champions, but we'll go over each of their kits, and I will specifically talk about the Donatello Fusion, give you my Fusion guide at the end of this video, so if you want that, skip that. I will try to make sure I mark that in the section down below, so you can skip to that if you're just looking for the Fusion guide. But we'll talk about how to make sure you get your hands on Donatello. I've read these a little bit earlier during my lunch break. This is right after work and I'm coming to film this stuff. I've been working pretty hard this week. I've had a lot of stuff going on, so I apologize for not being able to react to all of this stuff, but I had a banger of a video today for revealing this. Well, today as of filming this, it'll probably go live tomorrow, and it'll be nice to actually talk about some of this stuff with you guys, because this is absolutely amazing, very nostalgic for me, and honestly I think this is a really cool collaboration. But honestly, it's only going to be as cool as the champions if the champions are good. So let's go break down the kits on the various champions and see if any of these turtles are any good. All right, so first up we have the free login champion, Michelangelo. Obviously you can get him for free if you log in. I had the wrong dates in my video. So in my video, you have to log in before November 7th, I believe, and claim him by the 13th. So I think I had the wrong day because I was told the wrong day. I apologize for that. Those, I believe, are the correct dates. So do be aware that is when you can log in to get him. So you can, starting as of the 21st, which would be yesterday when this video goes live, you claim him on day 7, you get his perfect soul on day 14, and you can get up to a 5-star soul doing the other milestones over the course of a 2-week period. So honestly, you want to log in about a month before this ends if you can. If you're new to Raid, you can certainly use my link down below. I've got a nice link, get you some nice legendaries, get started on the right path. Get yourself a Michelangelo as well. He looks pretty cool. What does his kit do? Mikey has a 70-point accuracy battle in all auras. That's huge, because you rarely get more than 50 on champions like this, so the fact that he's got a 70 on all battles, absolutely huge. I'm really liking Michelangelo actually for a new account. Well, he's got a double hitter A1, which is always nice. If you need help in Fire Knight, the double hitters are always good. If either hit is critical, gets increased attack buff on this champion for 2 turns. So self-buffing 2 turns on an A1, it's an okay A1. It's an A1. If it does some decent damage, it'll be good. If it doesn't, it's an A1. He has an A2, 4-turn, 3-turn cooldown, bookable to 100% on the debuffs, lands decreased defense and stun. The decreased defense is before attacking. That is actually very important because that means that he doesn't need it up ahead of time to be able to hit with this. He then does a debuff spread, taking all debuffs from the target and placing them on all enemies. Ignores 25% of the resistance if the initial hit was critical as well. So he is going to be easier to build because he doesn't need as much accuracy, because he's ignoring resistance. Well, he's ignoring resistance on the stun. He's not ignoring resistance on the decreased defense. So I guess he's going to need some level of decreased accuracy, but you're going to want enough accuracy that decreased defense if you're relying on that. So that is going to make him a little easier to build, but not terribly easy to build. The fact that he could possibly spread a stun is great. The fact that it's a single target means he's probably not going to be a primarily damage dealer, which is fine. I think he'll find some interesting uses in some accounts with that. And then his AoE here, which is an AoE, so that's nice. He is a taunt that also puts decreased attack and leech for 2 turns, ignores 25% of the resistance. The attack is critical. So you want him with 100% crit rate. It looks like, I wouldn't be surprised if the decreased defense ignores resistance if the hit is critical. Actually, this can't ignore if it's critical because he can't ignore it ahead of time. So this is the only thing that's not to ignore the extra resistance. Everything else ignores a little bit of resistance. So if you end up not building that decreased defense, you're fine. But decreased attack and leech on an AoE, very, very good for Hydra. And honestly, debuff spread can be very good for Hydra, because it's a great way to get things like burn underneath the poison cloud. So if you're struggling with poison cloud, you can get burns underneath the poison cloud and then be able to attack through them, for example. So that is very helpful. So debuff spread good. Overall, an interesting kit. If he does good damage, then that will be amazing. If he does not do good damage, then he's got good utility here, and the taunt can be very interesting as well. It's got a passive effect that has a 15% chance to evade an enemy skill and all of its accompanying effects. Very reminiscent of Loki. Loki is definitely annoying in the arena. It's a 30% evade if he's under taunt, so once he is taunting other people, he gets that extra evade. That is great. And whenever Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, or Raphael attack, this champion joins in the attacks. The reason he is listed in here is you can get duplicates of these champions. So you could technically run 4 Michelangelos and they will all ally attack with each other. So the turtles, whoever they may be, will attack with all the other turtles whenever they attack. And I assume he joins in with his A1 on that. It doesn't say, but that's how ally attacks work. And then he puts a shield buff equal to 300% of the champion's attack on this champion for 1 turn when they receive a hit. So if he does not get hit, then he evades, and he doesn't get hit. He doesn't get any defects or any effects that happen with an enemy skill, any accompanying effects. So he ignores all that stuff with the evade. And if he does get hit for damage, actually I guess it doesn't say he has to take damage, but if he gets hit, he puts a pretty chunky shield, if you build him with some attack, on himself. Not horrible for an attack-based taunter. I still don't think it's the greatest combination, but he looks interesting. I suspect on early game accounts he will be a very useful champion. I know on my free-to-play he probably will actually be a very good Bannerlord for me to build for Faction Wars, probably for Faction Wars Hard, because I don't have any legendaries. He will prove to be regularly useful for that. I guess that's true. I have a legendary in that faction, but nobody particularly excited. Well, that's right. I've got Quintus too, but Titus is probably not built yet on this account. So Mikey will be interesting, and a 5-star soul is going to make him a good champion to use on any account. The good news with that 5-star soul, it's going to mean building him with resistance, building him with accuracy, building him with crit damage are all going to be significantly easier. Plus, he will have a ton of extra HP and attack and defense, meaning that he will be tankier than a lot of other attack-based champions for you. Is he going to find endgame arena meta use? Probably not. I'm not seeing a huge reason to build him on my main other than to build him for like a showcase of some kind. But 4 books here, 3 books here, 3 books here. He's 10 books, and you could get away with possibly 6 books on him. That's nice. That's a very friendly early game champion. So overall, I think that's a win. You know, if he was the best of the champions, then I would actually be kind of disappointed. If he's the worst of the champions, then they probably did pretty well, because this is a kit that's got utility, even if it's not absolutely amazing. I will say that Leech, decrease attack, and decrease defense gives him some interesting utility in Chimera for early game teams as well. So that's kind of cool. Plus the fact that he gets this shield on himself could make him an interesting ram tank. It means he could possibly do some fun stuff with the ram. Could be an interesting build. All right, we'll wrap this up with Donatello, because if you're looking for Donatello for the fusion, I will mark that spot so you can take a look at him for the fusion. So we'll go with the other champions first. Got Raphael right here. He is a barbarian. Definitely looks sick and definitely looks beefy. And with what I know about the characters, this is kind of the faction for him. He's kind of the hothead. That makes a lot of sense. So he's got a single target A1 double hitter, has a block revive. Each critical hit fills his turn meter by 10%. So he basically gives a 20% turn meter boost and a possible block revive if he's double hitting people on that as well. That's a very useful A1. And if that A1 absolutely smacks, that's going to be absolutely amazing. He is probably going to be more than many of the other turtles, very, very dependent on his multipliers, which I don't know at the moment. AoE, does have an AoE. Okay, I thought he didn't have an AoE, so that's great. Ignore shield and block damage if the attacking under Berserk debuff placed by this champion. If it's a Berserk debuff but not placed by him, he just deals 50% more damage to champions under shield. So if you don't have block damage, you'll have a way to ignore it, but it'll take you an extra turn or 2 to get to it. Each critical hit fills this champion's turn meter by 10%, so that can be possibly 50% with an AoE, maybe even more than that if you're using him in Spider. That's good. If this does damage, this will be great. That'll be very helpful, particularly for the shield and the block damage. Decent utility, but I'm not a huge fan of the conditional, but at least the conditional is something he can control, so that's not too bad. And then Not Today Knucklehead. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Triple hitters, kind of nice. There's utility for that in Arena. Each hit will ignore 20% of the target's defense. That's also very nice. Places a perfect veil buff and an unkillable buff on this champion for 2 turns if he kills a target. If the target survives, puts a Berserk debuff on this champion instead. This debuff cannot be resisted or blocked. So he can self-Berserk, which gives him an extra 25% damage, but he also takes extra damage. But then he can then ignore the block damage and the shield if he doesn't kill somebody as well. Interesting utility, and the perfect veil and unkillable. If he kills kills somebody. That's nice, gives him survivability as well. So he's got some okay utility. This is not screaming an endgame arena champion to me, but this is also screaming if you get him for wave content, he could be very interesting. And if you get him as an early game arena champion, he could be very good, because having the ability to put unkillable on yourself could be good if you knock somebody out. And the ability to get through block damage can be very helpful, especially if you struggle with this early game. Finally, he can join in on attacks with the other turtles. It looks like all the turtles will be able to do that. Puts a berserk debuff on this champion for 1 turn when any champion dies. So he doesn't even have to kill somebody. If somebody else dies, he gets the berserk. So that actually does mean you could build him in stone skin, and if he doesn't go first and survives and somebody else dies with stone while he's got stone skin, he'll berserk himself and then could possibly just do this and nerf through block damage. So that's kind of cool. Has 20% chance of granting an extra turn when attacking under berserk debuff placed by this champion. So yeah, he's got some good synergy. This is not a top tier kit, but it's not a bad kit. He does have an aura here too. I should actually check Mikey's aura, but he's got an aura here, attack in all battles by 30%. Not too bad. Decent champion, not top tier meta inducing, but decent. I wouldn't complain about him if I got him on my account. They actually published when we can actually get these champions, which is kind of cool. Obviously, Michelangelo, you get through the login program. The Hothead Deck of Fate. Tear through dungeons and tasks from October 13th through 16th. Earn fate points, flip cards, grab 100 champion fragments to summon Relentless Raphael. October 13th through 16th is a Monday through a Thursday. That is probably not going to be a shard event, although it could be a shard event. That also could be souls. It could be champion training. It talks about tear through dungeons and tasks, so I wouldn't be surprised if that is dungeon divers plus something else as well. Usually it is shards or souls. Hey, we'll see how that works. That could be definitely interesting to do, and get yourself a free Raphael. It looks like all of these champions, though, other than Shredder, has an event where you can earn them for free if you have the right resources available to you. So save up those resources if you don't need to spend them. Be careful, and that's why I'm letting you know what these are. So October 13th through 16th for Raphael. All right, so now we've got Leonardo here. He is a Shadowkin defense unit. He is a Void legendary, so that's kind of cool. He will be available in the Swordmaster Path event from October 7th through 10th. Complete objectives, collect hero coins, and blaze your way through branching paths to unlock Leonardo and his 5-star Perfect Soul. I would not be surprised if this is a soul event, other than the fact that there's also the Deck of Fate happening the next week. October 7th through 10th is going to be Tuesday through Friday. So again, probably not a shard event, but we're not sure. But it is going to be back to back from the Raphael event too. So that is going to be interesting and definitely challenging for a lot of you free to play players as well. But if you save up, you might be able to do it. So just be aware that there's all kinds of really cool events. I would not be surprised if we're going to have an October fusion of some kind as well, and probably a September fusion. So who knows what those will be, but they may be bait for drawing you away from getting your Leonardo. So is Leonardo worth it? Well, let's review this kit here. So first of all, he's got a double hitter, and when counterattacking, will repeat this attack against a random enemy. So if he's counterattacking, he can possibly get 2 different double hitters, which is kind of cool. Will ignore 3% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion on the A1. So hopefully this hits pretty hard. And he's a Void champion, so he should be not weak hitting, which will be kind of cool as well. The A2 here, 5-turn cooldown, bookable to 3 turn, places increased defense on all allies for 2 turns and a 50% ally protection buff on all allies except this champion, puts unkillable on him and counterattack on him for 2 turns. The unkillable and counterattack on ally protection is great. It's not quite block damage like you have with a Kyoku, for example, who's got one of the best ally protections in the game because she pretty much just negates half the damage. But with the unkillable, you're still not going to kill him, so it's very much a Skull Crusher-esque ally protection. The increased defense is nice. The counterattack only on himself. Little annoying, not on everybody, but that's just the way Raid is at the moment. 3-turn cooldown, a good skill for high progression, good skill for some of the bosses in hard faction wars. Probably not a skill that's going to see a lot of high-end arena play necessarily, so maybe not looking like an arena champion here. And honestly, I'm not a huge fan of ally protection in Hydra because all it takes is somebody to steal that and suddenly your ally protector is getting nuked and protecting your Hydra, and that doesn't help very much. It's got a bit of a faction unity skill here with turtle allies, so that's kind of cool. Attacks all enemies, damage inflicted by this skill increases by 5% for each buff on all allies and enemies. Ooh, that could be really juicy. That could be over 100%. Removes all buffs from all enemies. If this attack kills an enemy, cannot be resisted. So he needs 0 accuracy, which is really cool to do anything. On top of that, for the unity there, kind of a shame that Krisk doesn't count for this, but I get why. We'll ignore 15% of the target's defense for each. Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael on the team does not count this champion, so it's got to be other Leonardos, not this Leonardo. Turtle allies, 2 of them, increasing the damage dealt by this skill in proportion to this champion's missing HP. So he can basically ramp it up based on missing HP as well. Given the unkillable, that could be a big, big nuke. And then the third turtle activates the skill whenever an ally's HP drops below 50%. Occurs once per skill. If there are multiple champions on the team with the skill, only one will activate. He will counterattack on himself, attack multiple people with this counterattack, one of them being a random enemy. Can absolutely nuke with this one, especially if he's got other turtles around, and is protecting everybody else. Kind of a cool leadership ability. I thought he might have an ally attack, but I guess the turtles have an ally attack built into them with their passive as well. So he's got that passive ally attack, and then places a stone skin buff in this champion for 1 turn each time a champion's HP drops below 50%. Occurs once per skill. Now that is cool. In addition to having the unkillable, he can get stone skin put on himself for that ally protection to keep himself alive with that ally protection for 1 turn. Now, if you can get him back above that 50%, he'll get that stone skin right back because there is no cooldown on this skill. So this makes him absolutely amazing for some interesting PvE options. This could be an interesting way to get around the ram head in Hydra, for example, because you'll put stone skin on himself and he'll be able to do some ally protection, and the ram head may be able to not nuke you down with that ally protection, for example. This could be very good for progressing in clan boss if you're struggling in clan boss. I mean, heck, on my team, I've got 2 different champions that I use for ally protection. I could see him going in instead of my tyrant to add additional damage, because he will definitely do more damage than tyrant would, as well as mitigate a lot of extra damage with this extra stone skin and the unkillable, meaning that he would overall take less damage and be able to survive significantly longer. So he could be an interesting champion. And as a defense-based champion, he should be kind of tanky too. Finally, he's got a defense in all battles of 33% aura. Am I super stoked about Leonardo? I don't know. Ally protection is really one of these abilities that is absolutely great until you no longer need it. And when you no longer need it, it kind of falls off pretty quickly. He's certainly a badass looking champion. I think he looks absolutely amazing. You know, definitely for younger accounts, I think if you can get him guaranteed, he should be a very good champion. And honestly, I think there's going to be something cool for collecting all the turtles. I haven't seen if there is that yet or not, because again, I just got home. I haven't had a lot of chance to do a lot of research on this. But yeah, he looks like he's a good champion, but not a great champion. So maybe low A tier, maybe high B tier. Definitely a decent Void legendary, but certainly not a top tier Void legendary. So we've got April O'Neil, which I know is a bit controversial because we're not getting Splinter, and we're not getting Casey Jones or anybody like that. I've heard rumors that there was a reason we didn't get Splinter that was beyond Polarium's control. I expect they probably would have preferred us to have gotten Splinter to April O'Neil, but honestly, having looked at her kit a little bit, we're going to look at it again here, she's very interesting. I think she's actually one of the more interesting champions in this event, honestly. As far as how you can get her, we have the Ace Reporter Titan event that will be the longest of the crossover events. October 6th through October 23rd, there will be a Titan event where you can earn milestones like April O'Neil, relics, skill tomes, and more. I would expect to need to go hard in that, and since you're going to have the Path event and the Deck of Fate event inside of that Titan event that's going to be happening in October, you're definitely going to want to save up your resources if you want to try to get April O'Neil, and I would not be surprised if you're going to need to have to do some part of the Leonardo path or the Raphael path to get the points to make sure you get April O'Neil. So keep that in mind. You're probably also going to need to summon shards at least once in this event, so do keep that in mind as well. But let's take a look at April's kit, because I think she's actually very interesting. First of all, she's got an arena speed battle aura in 28%, so that's always very, very helpful on a lot of end game accounts and a lot of early game accounts. It's nice to have extra people with that speed aura, because speed is so clutch in arena. Hopefully she is an arena-based champion, and I think she could be. So she's got an an A1 here attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a random control. So stun, freeze, sleep, provoke, fear, true fear, or petrification for 1 turn. And then places a perfect veil buff on this champion for 2 turns. So her A1, she has a random chance to lock somebody out in some way, shape, or form, and then veil herself for 2 turns on an A1. And it can be buffed to 75% chance. So Sun Wukong's got a really good A1 that can have a 75% chance to stun. That is absolutely amazing. Hers is not just the stun, it's a bunch of other stuff, but a very, very good A1. So that's already a very intriguing champion there. And this is not screaming, I need to do damage. So this is looking like more of a support, and she's a support champion. It's an attack-based damage ability, but you're not looking to do damage on this. You're looking to land those debuffs there. And this means ally attack could be very interesting as well, because you could possibly use that to control. So exclusive scoop, 4 turn, 3 turn cooldown with a buff increase there. 75% chance of stealing all buffs from the target, 100% chance. Also has a 75% chance of stealing 100% of the target's current turn meter. Once this is booked, a 100% single target buff steal and turn meter steal. And that is steal, by the way. That's huge. That is going to be really good for folks that are struggling with the Dark Fae, because with the Dark Fae, 100% turn meter steal on a 3-turn cooldown effectively is almost on a 2-turn cooldown. So that's huge. That has a chance of placing a Nullify debuff and a Seal debuff on the target for 2 turns. And then as a passive effect, has a 25% chance of activating Explosive Scoop on an enemy when they gain an extra turn or instant turn effect. If there are multiple champions on this team with this skill, only one will activate. So basically, if somebody gets an extra turn or an instant turn, she has a chance to interrupt that person and hit them with this, steal all their turn meter, which means that they won't even get the turn, and then put a Nullify and a Seal on them as well. That's actually pretty huge. What does Nullify do? Well, Nullify right here, champions under Nullify cannot have their skills activated, participate in ally attacks, be granted an extra turn or an instant turn, have their skill cooldowns decreased, have their shield value increased, have their destroyed HP restored, have their HP swapped by allies or by themselves, evade enemy attacks or effects or skills, have their turn meter equalized, or have their HP balanced. So basically, if you're not taking damage, or doing damage, I guess, or doing your normal turn effect, you can't do anything super exciting with Nullify. It practically takes you out of the fight. And that is a great new lockout ability, which is why I think April O'Neil is actually really, really interesting. This could be very interesting to counter Shuzen, for example. This could be very good at countering Empress, for example, who gets a bunch of extra turns. This could possibly counter Amarius, who gets extra turns on one of his abilities. You've got plenty of instant and extra turn options in champions. Plus, if somebody's in Relentless gear, this is an interesting option for that as well. I don't know if bosses are going to be immune to Nullify or not, but for example, this could be actually very interesting against Amius, because Amius gets a bunch of instant and extra turns, and if this could possibly nullify that, that could make Amius significantly easier. And then Seal simply locks out gear bonuses. And if it's Greater Seal, is this Greater Seal or is this just Seal? Just Seal. So I believe Greater Seal locks out blessings as well. So regular Seal blocks effects from gear sets and masteries except for stat boosts. War Master stops working. Helm Smasher stops working. Your Ignore Defense from your gear set stops working. Healing from your gear set stops working. All of that fun stuff. And then Master Seal can actually block blessings except for the stat boosts as well. Very good ability. It is very useful on Carnage is the one that has this one. So very useful on Carnage. I think April's going to be a really good champion just with those 2 abilities. And we haven't seen this one here. So the A3 here, 5-turn cooldown, bookable to 4-turn, places a 50% increase accuracy buff on all allies for 2 turns. It also decreases the turn meters of all enemies by 20% and then takes an extra turn. So this becomes a 3-turn cooldown turn meter decrease. Again, really, really good for Dark Fae, for people struggling with Dark Fae. Increased accuracy, very, very good, especially for somebody who's going to be needing to land stuff like this as well. So very good for the support ability as well. And honestly, this being a 3-turn cooldown turns into a 2-turn cooldown possibly if you get a chance to activate this with that extra turn. And then finally, passive effect here for this 3-turn cooldown on this for the active effect. For the passive effect, if any of these things happen, decreases all enemies' turn meters by 10%. This is pretty cool. Very much early game, Valkyrie was a great meta arena champion because she can be very disruptive because she disrupts buffing your own champions and turn meter boosts. This is a very similar ability to basically decrease the turn meter of the enemy if they do just about anything, including that extra turn. Only one will activate, but that's a really, really cool and exciting active effect. Could be very, very effective in arena, could be interesting outside of arena as well, particularly in like hard faction wars where you might encounter some of these champions that will do that as well. Active effect: whenever an enemy is remove, transfer, or decrease the duration of any debuff to 0, decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 25%. So basically if they get cleansed or other interesting stuff like that, they get a 25% of all enemies turn meter decrease. Only one will activate, and there's not a 3-turn cooldown on that. That's still absolutely huge. April O'Neil is a great disruptor champion. One of the more interesting disruptors I've seen in a while. She may actually end up being meta in arena, and even if she's not meta in the high-end arena, this is a champion that I think will be very good in early to mid-game arena because she is a good counter for a lot of the speed problems you are going to encounter against faster teams and faster champions. And I think that is going to give early game players who can get April a better chance in arena, which is absolutely amazing. All right, so we have Shredder here. Now, Shredder does not have any particular way to get him that has been announced so far. So I'm sure he will end up in various progressive rate events. I am 100% sure that he will probably be the crown jewel of a Prism Shard event of some kind because that just kind of seems to make some sense. I would not be surprised if the turtles were also available in that Prism, but we'll see. He is definitely kind of cool looking and he definitely fits the Shadowkin aesthetic here as well. And he's also the boss you're going to fight in the event dungeon, which I will look at in another video here. So triple hitter A1. I like multi-hitter A1s. This is good. Second and third hits of the skill will ignore 5% and 10% of the target's defense respectively. Second and third hits of the skill will increase 10 and 20% more crit damage. So basically the first hit will do some damage, the second hit will do more, and the third hit will do even more. Kind of a cool one. That'll stack with other things that do multiple hits as well. There's definitely gems and relics that can up the damage on that as well. So it could be very interesting. Only 2 books on this as well, which is kind of nice. It is some damage, but that's fine. Got a 4-turn bookable to 3-turn cooldown here. Attacks all enemies 2 times. Each critical hit destroys the enemy's defense by 5%. That can be really, really nasty in PvE and PvP, for example. Destroying defense can be great. It's also a great way to knock down defense-based damage dealers as well, but that is going to make long-term fighting against him very difficult, which is good for you if you've got him, bad for you if you're going against him. Each critical hit also increases this champion's max HP by 5%. So basically he stacks up his damage dealing stat and toughness stat, because, you know, max HP gives him more toughness, and downs your ability to soak damage with your decreased defense and possibly your actual damage if you have a defense-based champion. Each head also has a 75% chance of placing a leech debuff for 2 turns, cannot be resisted if this champion's under Veil or Perfect Veil. So you may not need accuracy on this champion either, and you'll have 2 different chances to land that leech, which is good other than the fact that it's kind of weird because he's not a affinity-based champion, but so you shouldn't have a problem landing this with a strong affinity. But it means we get 3%ed on the first one for some strange reason. Without this resistance, you'll more likely get the leech on the second hit anyway. So it's almost a guaranteed leech, which is pretty good. The A3 here, this is True Ninjutsu. 6-turn bookable to 4-turn cooldown. Attacks all enemies. Before attacking, steals all buffs from a single target enemy, so you can target a particular person and steal all their buffs. This effect cannot be resisted if the champion's under Veil or Perfect Veil. Fills this champion's turn meter by 15% for each buff stolen. That's kind of nice because it means he'll get an extra attack later on if he's stealing a bunch of buffs as well. Will ignore 50% of the enemy's defense as well as shield and block damage buffs. If this champion's under a Veil or Perfect buff, will ignore 30% of the enemy's defense instead. Absolute beast of nuking ability. Ignoring block damage is huge and a great meta skill. This looks like a possible meta nuker. Well done. HP based nuker could be very interesting. Got a good amount of HP. His speed's pretty decent too. Okay defense. Could be a very good arena nuker. It's going to depend on his multipliers, and HP champions are unfortunately always kind of hit or miss as far as damage is concerned. But with all these escalations in his kit, that still could be a very good damage dealer. We'll see. All right. Passive effect. Decreases all incoming damage by 30%. This damage is split equally among all allies except this champion. So he's got a built-in survival mechanic that slowly but surely whittles everybody else down, but that's fine. Increases this champion's damage dealt by 15% for each dead ally. So as allies die, he gets stronger. That is definitely a good boss ability, but that is very interesting for a champion that could possibly outlast other teams as well, because he's mitigating a lot of the damage and possibly killing his enemies before he gets a chance to go. So that is absolutely huge. Then an active effect. Whenever this champion loses 20% of their max HP in one attack, has a 100% chance to evade the next attack. This is guaranteed evade effect activates, places a perfect veil on this champion for 2 turns, and has a 50% chance of placing a true fear on all enemies for 1 turn, and the true fear cannot be resisted. So he doesn't need accuracy for the most part. You get the true fear after the second hit. Would be nice if we had a slightly better way to put that perfect veil on him, but interesting passive. I like it. And he's got a good HP in all battles aura of 33%. The only ones that are better than this are the mythicals at 35%. Very interesting and good champion. Should be an interesting boss as well. So I'm certainly excited to dive into the event dungeon, although I will admit I don't think that the event dungeon gear is that great. Oftentimes the event dungeon can be fun to run and fun to check out. So we'll definitely check it out at the very least. And extra good accessories, with accessories with extra stats, never a bad thing, but certainly make sure that you're keeping the right, better accessories as well. All right, so finally we have Donatello here. Donatello is part of the current Fragment Fusion that is live today, Thursday, the 21st. When you guys see this video, it'll be the 22nd. It has already started, and we'll go over the calendar, and I'll talk about some of the tools you can use to make that easier for you. But I think he's good, and as I mentioned in a previous video, Donatello is my favorite Ninja Turtle. I've always liked him. To be fair, part of that's because I've always been the nerd techie of most of my groups. So yeah, I'm certainly excited to get him, and honestly, I think this kit sounds absolutely amazing. He's got an A1, attacks 1 enemy, heals all enemies by 5% of this champion's max HP, and he's a support champion and deals damage based on HP. So even if you build him for damage as a support, which he might be able to do damage, he might not, we'll certainly take a look. You're going to build him with a lot of HP anyway, so you're going to get a chunky heal with even a 5% of this champion's max HP. He also instantly activates 1 random continuous heal buff on all allies. Kind of nice, because that's another way to give yourself an extra 15% healing on everybody, and that's on an A1, which is kind of cool. A2 here, 6 turn, bookable to 4 turn cooldown. AoE attacks all enemies, decreases the cooldowns of all allies' skills except for this champion's by 2 turns. This skill's cooldown cannot be decreased by other cooldown decreasing effects. So he's got a Kymar-esque cooldown decrease. It's only 2 turns on a 4-turn cooldown, but that 4-turn cooldown makes this very useful. There are so many areas where decreasing your cooldowns on your team is so clutch. Plus, he also gives you an increased speed while he does it, and he attacks while doing it as well. If you build him for some damage, which he might be able to do, I don't know, I have to certainly test him for damage, he could be very interesting. And on top of that, resetting skills, very good. If you are an early game account, this is one of the better skills you can get in the game. Ability to manipulate cooldowns is so empowering on an account. This is going to be a big deal that honestly, I think that you probably should be going for this champion if you have a newer account and don't have a Kymar or don't have, a Renegade kind of works, but this looks like a better version of Renegade's kit, definitely, especially because it's not going to kill him, or just a Painkeeper. If you don't have your Yumiko and you don't have your Kymars, this is probably one of the better abilities to do exactly what we're talking about, decrease the cooldowns on everybody's skill. Absolutely amazing. Really like this skill. Well worth going for this fusion just on this skill alone. And then we have a 6-turn bookable to 3-turn cooldown, and he only needs 6 books, 9 books total. I haven't looked at the passive yet. 9 books total. He doesn't even need all of those A1 books as well. 6-turn cooldown, bookable to 3, an AoE cleanse, so removes all debuffs from all allies, continuous heal and strengthen, so damage mitigation and healing, and a 20% turn meter fill. Plus he's got a speed of 108, so he could be a turn meter booster in arena for you that also gives you the ability to do some reset. Plus he puts strengthen in the continuous heal and as a cleanse, so he could be very useful in early to mid, even possibly some late game arena with this particular kit right here. This is never a bad ability to have around an arena, and of course you can trigger these continuous heals that he's going to put on everyone else to heal everyone else as well. Very nice. Finally, he's got the passive effect to join in on attacks with the other turtles as well, and he's got a 6-turn, so he does have 11 books he needs, because this is a 6-turn bookable to 4-turn cooldown. Whenever an ally is about to receive a fatal hit, This champion prevents that ally's death and keeps them alive with 1 HP. Then equalizes that ally's HP. The HP level of that ally will be brought to the average HP level of the team. If there are multiple champions on the team with this skill, only one will activate. This is very similar to how Freya works, other than the fact that Freya sets you to 20% constantly. This sets you to the average of every other HP champion on your team. That means that if somebody single target snipes somebody from out of you with a single hit, well, you stop that, practically heal them up entirely, and it's done. So that's nice. So that is going to keep people alive. This can be very useful in PvE. This can be very useful in PvP. This champion has a very, very good kit. Honestly, outside of maybe April O'Neil, who I think might have use in Endgame Arena, this is probably the next best kit of the champions there. Maybe if Shredder absolutely nukes, Shredder's up there as well. But I think the fact that you can get this guy as a fragment fusion, you should be going for this champion if you have the resources to do so. I never want to say that somebody is a do not skip, but this is a rare combination of really good abilities that are useful on every account at every level. And that generally means that he's a good champion to have. And even if you end up not needing him because your lizardmen are absolutely snack-tacked, you have the champions that do what he does just a little bit better. It is really nice to have this type of champion available for restrictive content where maybe he might still be better than somebody else that you might have available. Plus, if you manage to get multiple turtles, there might be some fun with multiple turtle teams as well. So I think he is well worth going for. So let's go hop over to the Fusion calendar and talk about how to get this champion. We have here the Fragment Fusion event here, and doesn't look particularly surprising here, other than there's a couple of things that are actually kind of nice. So first of all, you've got your Ice Golem tournament right here, you've got your Dragon tournament right here, you've got your Fire Knight tournament right here, and you have your Spider tournament right here. And then of course we have the general Classic Arena. It looks like you've got Classic Arena right here. Classic Arena is usually really easy to do, so I like to mark that one with green. You've got a Champion Chase tournament coming up soon, and the Champion Training tournament over here. And then of course you have a Champion Training event and other stuff around here. So the training events, I always like to mark those in yellow because those are also ones I really recommend doing, particularly because it looks like those are worth 10 fragments with an additional 10 if you can win the Champion Training tournament. So I wouldn't count on winning that, particularly given how far away that is. If you're counting on winning that and you skip something before you get to it, you're going to really regret it. So if you get extra fragments, you get extra fragments. They could be mod fragments. It's certainly not a bad option for you. First of all, things you always worry about, we've got the Dungeon Divers here. So if we go for Dungeon Divers, I'm going to mark this one here. So that butts up at the end of that Dragon tournament, but it does actually hit up with this Champion Training event. So that is certainly worth knowing, but it started today. So go ham and Ice Golem if you want to. It all counts toward Dungeon Divers. That's absolutely amazing. So that is great. And then focus on some Champion Training tomorrow, especially if you do Champion Training in the campaign. Champion Training in the campaign earns you Dungeon Divers points as well. So you're not going to be able to double dip with two different tournaments, but the Ice Golem tournament runs parallel to this Dungeon Divers event, which is overall not too bad and nice to see that they all start up both on the same area right there. That said, we take a look at this Dungeon Divers event there. That's going to match up with that Dragon tournament there and then cut off before this Fire Knight tournament. So if you're going to skip one of these things by doing some of these extra fragments as well, and there are 130 fragments available, but only 110 if you don't win one of these two tournaments, either Champion Chase or the Champion Training tournament. So this Dungeon Divers event is probably one of the worst ones you could deal with. There is a Champion Training event with it, but that's it. And that Champion Training event, hopefully you're mostly done with by the time you get to this here with this overlap. So if you're going to skip one, this is a good one to skip if you can. And then of course we have the other Dungeon Divers event, so we'll hope this one is not as bad. This one comes and starts during the second day of the Fire Knight tournament and then overlaps with the Spider tournament as well as the Champion Training event here as well. So I think if you're going to skip one of these three Dungeon Divers event, this middle Dungeon Divers event is the one to skip. If you're going to skip two of them, then possibly this second one here, because it will depend on when the Fire Knight, but the fact that the Fire Knight and the Spider overlap with this one should make this one significantly easier to mostly max out. Plus you have Champion Training in here as well. So if Champion Training is something you do in campaign, again, that will help you with Dungeon Divers. Other ones that are often hard to deal with here is we have the Gear Enhancement event. So we got this Gear Enhancement event right here. We got this one right here, and we have this one right here. Now, as far as which one's going to be the most difficult, it's really going to depend on how much silver you have right now. If you have a lot of silver going into these fusions, like I always recommend you try to do, well, This first one should be fairly easy, and then you'll have an Ice Golem and Dragon tournament to kind of build up some silver before you get to this one, and then you have the Fire Knight and Spider tournament to help you with this final one here. So if I was to skip one of these events, I would think about possibly skipping this particular gear enhancement event. That said, if you want to skip an event, you are going to need to make sure you get all of the Champion Chase tournament points right there, and you're going to need to get all of the Summon Rush points right here. So this Champion Chase is going to be difficult because it is going to be 2x Sacreds. At least according to my calendar, it should be 2x Sacreds because we had 2x Voids 2 weeks ago and 2x Ancients 4 weeks ago. So it is 2x Sacreds. So this is where having your Fragment champions saved up. For example, on my free-to-play, I have not pulled my Crocad. I just earned Lamassu, and at the end of the day today, I will have Drexstar Blood Twin. So I will have 3 legendaries and 1,650 points just from those 3 champions to pull for this Champion Chase event before I pull a single shard. So I may not have to pull any of my Sacred Shards, which will be great. 2x Sacred Shards can be a fun time to pull, especially on an early game account, because it gives you this wonderful chance to get Sacreds. But I absolutely would recommend saving your Sacreds for this Summon Rush over here, because this Summon Rush, you're going to want somewhere between 6 to 7 Sacreds. And if you want to max this out, you're probably going to want closer to 10 to 12. So it's a range because Lorium's actually been fairly nice for some of these things, made them kind of achievable. And they've actually learned with this Dungeon Divers event right here. So maybe they're learning a bit, and maybe this is not going to be super, super expensive. And again, with the Sacreds not being super valuable for the Champion Chase because they are either worth 250 or 500 points, but you don't get rares. And since they are hard to pull and hard to get, 2x Sacreds is just not a great time to be pulling for the Champion Chase. If you're going to pull an off-brand shard for that, Ancients is not bad. Primals, maybe. I don't like pulling Primals off of a 2x Primal unless there's a very good reason to do so, such as a good Summon Rush, but still probably not the best option for you. And honestly, on an endgame account, I absolutely wouldn't, because that's the best way to get Mythicals. Maybe Mystery Shards, but Mystery Shards in a Champ Chase is going to suck. I guess you're only going to get 1 point either way. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. The good news about a Champion Chase, though, is buying champions from the shop count, getting champion fragments count. Now, you're not going to get Michelangelo in time for this one, which is very unfortunate. But if you've gotten a Lamassu held up, or you've got like some of the champions you bought from, say, the clan shop are ready to go. If you've got any of those champions, now is a great time to pull them for that Champion Chase, because that will save you the Sacreds to be able to save up for the Summon Rush and hope you can get the top level of Sacreds to get all that extra stuff here. My plan would be to recommend to try to max out both of the summoning events if you can, and I realize that means you're going to need a lot of Sacreds. Fortunately, we just changed the Doom Tower rotation, so hopefully if you're finishing Doom Tower hard, that'll give you a couple of them extra. Hopefully you've gotten your monthly Sacred pretty recently, and hopefully, unfortunately, unlike what's been happening with me, Clan Boss has been generous with you. Hopefully you're getting some Sacreds, or at least some other shards that will help you get those extra fragments. But I would highly recommend trying to get all 15 of them in this Champion Chase, just because I do like front-loading these events when you can, because that means that you don't have to stress if you're worried about forgetting one of these tournaments. Otherwise, if I'm only getting 5 on this Champion Chase, I need to make sure I'm hitting everything else, including this Dungeon Divers, including this gear enhancement, and that can be very, very painful. On the other hand, if you can get the maximum amount of shards for this Champion Chase, then maybe if you're not getting all the shards you need from Clan Boss, maybe you don't need to go 10 to 12 shards deep here on this Summon Rush. That said, we also don't know if there's going to, well, no, I don't, there probably will be an event for Donatello's Soul at some point in time. What kind of event? I'm not sure. Let's go check my notes on that quickly. No notes on Donatello's Soul event. So there could be a Soul event happening either right here or maybe the week after the fusion. We'll find out. There's plenty of time too, because like I said, this ends on September 3rd. A lot of these other events here that are happening on October. So Donatello's got plenty of time for us to have an event for his soul in between September 3rd and the first time we have anything else happening in October. Keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out how to budget, how you're getting this champion. But again, this champion seems absolutely amazing. I know on my free to play, he does a ton of stuff that I've been looking for in champions. One of the reasons I like Mithrala is the Mithrala cleanse has been so clutch for my account. And Donatello does a cleanse as well as a reset. So there's chances Donatello could actually replace Mithrala in a couple of teams teams that I'm currently running Mithrala on. It also means that I now have a reset champion, which means that I have a chance to possibly use a reset champion to help speed up some of my teams or to make certain teams easier in dungeon runs, as well as possibly might have some fun stuff to do in Hydra. And it also means that if I'm going to eventually build a Titus team on this account, he could be absolutely clutch for building that Titus team, because even if he doesn't get his skill ever reset by the skill resets, the fact that he can do that 2-turn cooldown skill reduction still gives him a lot of utility in a team like that, where I want to get the abilities that I want to get the shield growing and as well as the extra damage from Titus out as often as possible. So I think Donatello is going to be a great champion for a lot of players. And with that said, I really think he is a champion you should go for if you have the resources. If you don't have the resources, well then save up, don't be pulling shards, because there are going to be more shard events, there are going to be more soul events, there are going to be more events for some of these other champions. And if you wanted your chance to get one of these other champions possibly for free, and you could certainly consider that another fusion, then you want to save your resources. But is this a must skip or an easy skip? No, I don't think this is an easy skip, which is certainly frustrating for a lot of us that are just kind of tired and burned out on fusions a little bit, but at the same time, good on Polarium for releasing banger champion after banger champion. You know, we cannot complain about the quality of the fusion champions lately. It has been absolutely amazing. So, hey, I appreciate, if you guys appreciate, breakdown content like this, you appreciate my thoughts on these champions, and if these things help you, let me know. I really appreciate down below. Let me know, what do you think of these champions? Are you going for Donatello? What's your plan? One of the things I will do as well is I will leave a link to Fastidious's raid calendar. He has a wonderful planning calendar that basically has this in a breakdown where you can check off getting any or all of these fragments as you go, which will allow you to make sure that you can track and make sure you have as many fragments as you have and you don't forget about an event. So it's a great tool, and it lets you see this calendar and interact with it as well. So I highly recommend go checking it out. Fastidious is a great guy as well. Go give the guy some support. But much love for you guys. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I really do appreciate all you guys. I am super stoked to have some fun with these champions, and I will be making more content breaking down things like the chronophage gear. I will talk about the event dungeon. I will talk about the relics. So look out for videos to be coming out over the next week or so talking about all of this stuff. And if you have any questions or things you want me to cover in those videos, let me know down in the comments below, and I can try to make sure I get them before I get filmed, and we'll have some fun playing Raid Shadow Legends with the turtles. Hey guys, until the next video, I am Bront.